Hello, beautiful ladies and gents, and welcome to today's video, Stop Drinking! Hello, beautiful ladies and gents, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a husband versus wife movie review on Ford versus Ferrari. So we saw this movie for not for my birthday.
No, we didn't.
We
saw no movies for your birthday.
We didn't, even though that was like the biggest part of our original plan.
Yes.
And then none of that happened.
So we saw this movie.
Last night.
Yes. We saw this movie, and the ultimate determination about it, which we will explain and which we will justify, is we enjoyed it. We would recommend it to people, but I would not want to on principle because it got on my nerves, the flaws in it. The way that I describe it is that it's a movie where the writing gets in the way of the movie in contrived and grating ways, but the directing, the cinematography, the acting, the editing for the most part, all are so good and so competent that you're still engaged for like almost 3 hours.
Right.
But so I enjoyed it, but I also was left so annoyed by these unnecessary, avoidable flaws that I resent the movie for being something I'd recommend. It's one of those things.
I went to the movie, loved most of it. I wouldn't say every second, because there were parts of it that I didn't think were totally necessary. But
You'd say that the movie didn't do a perfect lap?
Oh, God. Don't get me started. But yes, there were parts of it that
I think we're here to start. I think that's the very point of
That's
this.
the very point of this.
Yeah.
I felt like I watched the movie, enjoyed it, didn't feel like it was almost 3 hours. And when we left the theater, I thought to myself, I'm really happy I went to see that. But the last 10 minutes I thought were unnecessary and made me... The things that I was questioning already earlier in the viewing made me question even more. Those last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So, why don't we hop in and talk about the story a little bit?
Overview of the movie.
Yeah.
So, the idea of the movie is it's two things at once.
Yeah.
Right? It's a bromance drama of two men, high performers, who work together. They already have their established working relationship,
right.
So we don't have that annoying take-up period where everything has to be an origin story, and so you waste time on contriving the circumstances. No. Two men respect each other, work with each other, and now they just have a challenge, which is like the biggest thing in their careers, kind of, that they're going to meet, and it's just compelling. Fair.
Yeah.
Then the second part is it's like a sports movie, and it's competitive, and it's about the rivalry, except that Ferrari, it's supposed to be Ford v. Ferrari in the title. Ferrari figures less in this.
Yeah,
and it's more about...
funny.
It's kind of like it's an objective challenge. Kind of like those movies where people try to overcome nature in a certain way, or just trying to achieve something objectively impressive. It'd be the same thing as if this were a movie about trying to run the fastest mile you could do.
Yeah.
Like the other competitors don't
it's like
really
a
matter.
little bit there, but they play it up. It's funny.
I'd say they play it down.
Well, they play it up in the sense of, I looked up some things about the historical accuracy of the movie.
I should have done that. Very unprofessional.
Well, a couple things that stood out to me was that Ferrari was not there, actually, at the race of Le Mans.
What?
He wasn't at the race.
Oh, I thought you meant the team wasn't there.
Oh, no. The team
Ford v.
was
Ferrari.
there.
We got the
team
Ford,
was
we got the
there.
race. The Ferrari was historically inaccurate, but who cares?
No, Ferrari himself did not go to the race.
Enzo Ferrari.
Yeah, he wasn't there. And then the thing that you and I had been curious about, sorry, this is a little bit of a shift, but the thing that you and I had been curious about whether Beebe was actually, Beebe? Is it Beebe or Beebe?
The senior vice president of
Yeah.
marketing? Oh, okay. We got to put the audience in context for this.
Well, I was going to say one thing, which is that the guy who kind of creates most of the conflict of the movie...
Played by Josh Lucas.
Who
plays every character you've ever wanted to smack in an Adam Sandler movie.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They played up his character's conflict stuff, which was what we had been wondering about. But that's a later conversation. So, anyways, going back to what you were talking about.
Okay. So, it's two things. It's your bromance movie. It's your sports rivalry
Rivalry
movie, and it's / your objectively impressive achievement movie. Great, compelling. Christian Bale, we know he can act.
Amazing.
Matt Damon, we know he can act. We might not
And
want
of
these
course,
people to be people to give credit to, but you give them
Don't
credit.
worry, Christian Bale did lose his prerequisite 40 pounds before playing the part, so we know he's Christian Bale.
Because otherwise we wouldn't know he was specifically Ken Miles in this movie if he weren't
because
skinny
we wouldn't
enough.
know it was specifically Christian Bale if he didn't lose
You're
40
right.
pounds or gain 40 pounds for a role.
He's the Joaquin Phoenix of creepy Englishmen, Welshmen.
Don't
rather
get
than creepy
Joaquin
Americans.
Phoenix is a discussion for another time because I have a lot of feelings. But
We
continue.
never, or rather, we've not yet done a review of You Were Never Really Here, which figures in the pantheon of the burgeoning genre.
Okay,
English
we'll
is
put rivalry and genre.
English is my first and only language, and I can't do it. The burgeoning genre of Joaquin Phoenix is a mildly extreme weight with a certain amount of facial hair as a disaffected loner who kills people because society is corrupt, and he lives with his mom.
And also directors are just like, oh my god, show us what you can do!
This is a review within a review, but the movie You Were Never Really Here, which is the movie Taken as directed by an incredibly indulgent, self-involved French auteur. I don't know if that's literally true, but the words I just said conjure to mind the style of the movie. That movie and Joker are in that genre. In You Were Never Really Here, he's an overweight, bearded loser who's disaffected, lives with his mother, and kills people because society is corrupt.
Correct.
With long, indulgent shots on him being Joaquin Phoenix in emotional pain.
Yes.
And then in Joker, he's an underweight, clean-shaven, disaffected loser who lives with his mom and kills people because society is corrupt, and there are long, indulgent shots of him being in pain.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. But so outside of that, because that has nothing to do with Ford versus Ferrari.
Well, it does. It's part of the genre of actor needs to be a certain weight with a certain look, otherwise is he really acting?
Yes, true.
So Christian Bale for this movie, he is great as the intense Englishman Ken Miles, and very compelling, and he brings across that competitive character who needs to be the top of his field, or otherwise he's just kind of not fulfilling his role on Earth. And what was nice about this movie is that you see that character here with a loving and understanding wife and a loving and understanding son, and it slots in the highly ambitious, highly competitive, driven to perform character alongside normalcy of a wife and a son whom he loves and lives his life for the sake of, and they're also on board with the racing. So we avoid that scene.
Well,
that subplot.
I said that.
You're the one who characterized it, but we both agreed.
Yes, we did agree. But yes, it's the thing for me that I thought was really kind of interesting in its avoidance of it was that they didn't... the
absence thereof.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't take the prerequisite, I can't handle my husband doing a job that's so dangerous even though I married him and I knew that was what he was going to do for his life. I was happy that we didn't have to go through that. His wife was just, okay, this is what he does, and I love it, and he loves it, and that's what's going to happen now. And
I mean, there was mild conflict at one point, but that was...
Not about that.
It was specific to the marriage rather than the annoying genre concern. Because movies are at their worst when the dialogue is just kind of there because you have to have dialogue to move you from A to B efficiently when we all know it's going to happen. Stock dialogue, stock characters, stock things are insufferable. They're boring. You're not alive while you're watching it. Yeah. But also, it's insulting in a historical drama movie because then you're taking away the humanity of actual people. If you had Ken Miles, real person, real race, or Hall of Fame kind of guy, rendered into a dead stock script kind of character.
Right.
What a disrespect to a human being to make him basically a cardboard cutout with a face.
I agree.
Ugh.
But so I
avoided it. It was good.
I thought that was really actually interesting because, of course, we as viewers are worried about Ken and any driver who can get into a crash and die and burn.
And they do in this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that later, but that was a bit weird. The level of awareness and dwelling upon of the danger in the racing.
Yeah, they didn't talk about it as if it was an actual concern. But let's
so bizarre.
Go in order here. So let's talk about, why don't we...
Well, we had our Christian Bale talk.
Yep.
Now we have the Matt Damon talk.
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't
Matt
we go
Damon
back to
Matt Damon? He was fine.
I mean, look,
He was
Matt
fine.
Damon
He was a character.
as an actor is one of those guys who is just extremely likable on screen. You watch him and you're like, that seems like a cool guy. And I'm sure that Matt Damon himself is likable. I'm not saying I agree
We know
with
nothing
him.
about Matt Damon. We
And
know
his
some things about his
life.
politics and his reaction to other people, but we actually don't know anything about him.
Yeah,
It's like
but I'm
Jimmy
saying
Kimmel.
it might
we don't
be-
really know anything about the person.
Yes. But there are some actors who it's like, oh, you watch them and it's that actor in a part. It's Matt Damon playing Carol Shelby.
Oh, the George Clooney approach of
Yeah,
being
exactly.
George Clooney
exactly.
in every movie.
And I don't know if that's Matt Damon. It could be, but he on screen is just, I find, pretty much always likable, and that is definitely true in this movie. You like him from the start, from the get-go. He's a cool guy, and you kind of want to like see his relationships with other people because he's just a friendly
Christian Bale
dude.
as Ken Miles was volatile, stubborn, self-aware about it, but couldn't help himself with how just intense and passionate and angry he was. And so he felt like a distinct character, whereas the Matt Damon performance as Carol Shelby felt like he could have just been charming, affable, professionally driven man,
Right.
rather than whoever Carol Shelby actually
Although
was.
I will
It may have been
say-
Carol Shelby, or it may have just been kind of stock straight man character for Matt Damon to play. I don't know enough about Carol Shelby's actual personality.
Me neither.
But unlike Christian Bale's Ken Miles, it just didn't come across as like, oh, this is a particular person. It just it could have come across as just, this is Matt Damon playing
Right,
guy.
right. The one thing I will say is that Ken Miles is a much showier part generally, and Carol Shelby I don't think is a showy part. I don't think any person playing that part you would have been like, oh, that's the scene stealer.
Yeah,
I think that Ken
the role
Miles
he was performing in the script.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I think, brings us to the next point, which is the script. And I think that's what we found lacking. Not the writing in the scenes between characters.
Well, so
I thought that was good.
Dialogue
Yeah.
dialogue was fine, and it was well acted. You were watching human beings throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Again, as opposed to just puppets or muppets or whatever you want to call them, just the inert dolls that they basically put and bump against each other like a kid in a bathtub for dialogue that they do in so many movies that are bad. Here, everyone was acting and everyone had good dialogue, so it came across and you felt like you were in the world of it. Again, an almost 3-hour movie that you were not aware of, like, the time length of,
the only
except for a few
time.
scenes.
Yeah, I want to say...
Circle, so we're gonna flank it later. Come on,
Okay, fine. We gotta go in order. We gotta go in order.
What the errors in the movie consisted of with regard to the writing? Can they not see it? It's
you
off screen?
can't see the hand, but also the mic is on the table, so that'll screw things up.
So what the errors in the movie consisted of was the way in which the drama and conflict with regard to the Ford race team consisting of Ken Miles and Carol Shelby, that conflict there felt so arbitrary, so stupid, so stock movie, sports movie.
It's the creatives
conflict
against the business corporations.
Yeah.
Blah, blah. I mean,
So
that was
stupid.
It was fabricated. It wasn't. It was made up for the movie.
I mean, if you want conflict between the corporate team and then our creative types, where the corporates just don't get it, you know what you do? You portray the corporates not getting it and why.
Yeah.
If it's a matter of, oh, we can't take a risk here, well, why do they think that? Is the guy who
Right.
made his career all the way up into senior vice president of a major company like Ford just that stupid? If he is, show it and show the culture of Ford where that's a problem, and then actually show it's endemic to the corporate. Then I have some sympathy for the conflict and kind of how annoying it is to be the race team. Whereas if that guy had any inkling of a point, show me why it would have made sense to him, even though it wouldn't have made sense for this situation, for these characters. Make him not just a jerk who's there to be a jerk.
Just to be kind of the conflict.
Yeah.
I felt like, here's what I felt like, and I'm kind of assimilating this information as we're talking, is that I feel like all of the script writing was actually really good between the creative characters, and husband and wife, and that was great. I think the issue was that because they were fabricating the conflict, then everything that happened on that side was the issue. And
Stiff
if they
and
had,
dead.
and in a way, they didn't need it. The conflict was between man and accomplishment.
Yes.
It was between them accomplishing what they needed to do to prove themselves, not I need to fight the corporate guy who's telling me that Ken Miles can't fight and play and drive and do his own thing. Like, it was just arbitrary, and it did not add. It was like to prove a point or something. But
it's pathetic.
The best movies, the best sports movies, I think, are the ones like Miracle. I know you haven't seen that, but the ones where there's a team that just needs to prove how good they are. And the conflict is built into them playing their best and doing their best.
If you've done your job well in a movie like that, there is inherent drama. There are inherent stakes from the scale of task before our heroes, so that we get it as audience. We just understand inherently how hard this is and how much they want it, and you just let it develop from there. And you let the difficulty of the task present itself, so that when you think you have it pinned down, oh look, a wrinkle in the fabric of the situation reveals itself, because of course it would, because it's hard.
Yes.
And then they respond to it. Boom! Conflict. Oh, midpoint turn or whatever it is.
Right.
That's like the stock pacing of the
Right.
script. It's fine. You don't need it to be that, oh, we're so
There's a
confident
bad guy.
we're going to accomplish the objective of winning the race. Oh, but corporate threw a wrinkle in your... Why?
Right.
So this was actually feasible to achieve, and it's just Ford getting in its own way? Maybe I don't want Ford to win now.
Right.
Because apparently they don't care about winning. Like, what is the
and there were
goal
also,
here?
to me, there were a couple of things. So here are some other wrinkles in the script, I think. Is it okay if we move on to that?
Can I start with my worst one?
Sure.
I know I'm talking too much.
No, you're not.
I'll ratchet it back.
You won't. Go ahead.
Wife who I talk over. So, situation we have, right? We're in the 60s. Ford versus Ferrari. The Le Mans big...
Nothing, you're good.
Oh, okay, push my foot. The Le Mans 24-hour race that they're trying to do, you are literally racing for 24 hours to see who's the most racer there is. The car has to hold up. The driving team has to hold up. Everything has to be amazing. It's an unbelievable endurance thing.
Right.
The idea of that as a spectator sport befuddles me.
Yeah, same here.
Hey, listen, historically it revealed itself to be capable of being a spectator sport. Good for them. I wouldn't have thought of it. But
fantastic.
What's annoying is that the central conflict that starts the movie, of the very idea of this Ford rivalry with Ferrari, comes from Ford trying to boost some sales, and Lee Iacocca, who's going to be future leader,
Right.
he recommends that they try and compete with Ferrari by being race car, sexy image maker, and Ferrari does it. They kind of ignore the fact that they also bring up the Ferrari's sales were flagging. So if the whole idea is Ford's sales are flagging, so we're trying to improve our sales, so we're going to do what Ferrari does because they're sexy race car, but then Ferrari as that also has bad sales. I don't know, that moment
I know
got
that
me.
bothered you.
But okay, they try and buy Ferrari for Ford, and it turned out that Ferrari, the man himself, was actually just using them to make Fiat give them a better offer to buy them out. Okay, so they're jealous. And then also Ferrari personally insults Henry Ford II, grandson of the Henry Ford. The grandson's now in charge of Ford the corporation, insults him and tells him you're never going to be Henry Ford, you're just Henry Ford II. You're just piddling, nothing, nepotistic baby. Okay, so there's conflict. He wants to beat Ferrari at their own game and whoop them in racing. There are 3 moments in the movie where Henry Ford II is like, I'm going to go to war. I'm going to smash my Capone in The Untouchables. His family's dead. This guy's dead. Like that. But then immediately does a stupid decision that's bureaucratic and corporate and is more about just dumb marketing ideas rather than actually trying to win. So how am I supposed to view this man who's driving the plot by his decisions? Is he on our hero's side in terms of like inspiring, wants to whoop the Italians at the racing, or is he an obstacle to be overcome because he's just a corporate boob?
Yeah.
And they didn't show a balance between he wants to do it, but then kind of his inherent corporate nature, whatever pulls him. It just flips.
Anything that
Stupid.
had to be corporate in this movie, they were just like, well, I feel like in corporations, this is what would happen. People would be mean, and then they would be stupid.
Because, as we all know, the studios that produce movies like this are completely free-form creative tanks.
Right, of course.
That just have no structure, and there's no big money on the line that makes everyone actually have to follow procedure.
No sense.
Yeah, as we all know, film studios are not big corporations and they have no bureaucratic structure or anything like that. And so we can just treat every corporation as idiotic and stodgy and uncreative, which is why they all survive, which is why they created all the products that we use, and it's why there's innovation happening all the time. It's because this is an accurate portrayal. It was so grating.
Yeah, no, it was really annoying.
Because it's supposed to be a dramatic... I'm rolling up my sleeves. So it's supposed to be a dramatic swell that we're on board with, and now the team's going to buckle down and get dangerous and get serious.
It was very cool.
And then something done happens, and George Lucas is involved.
Yeah, and then it was stupid. Like, Henry Ford's just like, oh yeah, I handed over the reins after literally saying I'm in charge. It made zero sense with the characters, with the writing. It didn't make any sense. Okay, so that's wrinkle numero uno.
Wrinkle number two?
Wrinkle number two is, for me,
yeah.
There were actually 2 and 3 I want to hit.
Oh.
I'll
just sit here silent.
One is that the Ford... There were other Ford teams that were just totally unaddressed. That there were like 2 other cars that were in 2nd and 3rd place at Le Mans. And I was thinking to myself, are they also created by Shelby? Who are those drivers?
No one knows.
What's going on?
No one knows.
Why are we taking so much stock in Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles if there are 2 other cars that are as fast or just about as fast as Carroll Shelby's car?
Because that's the plot.
And I was just like, I get it, and I understand you have to like cut things for time, and you're creating a narrative here. But if they could have just devoted 1 second to explaining why there were other Fords in the race, so that I wasn't sitting there like, whoa. This isn't... The movie's called Ford versus Ferrari.
I was just thinking...
Not Shelby versus
Name
Ferrari.
It something else. Name it Le Mans or something like that.
Well, there's a movie called Le Mans.
Name it Le Mans again. How many movies have been rebooted or like on the same topic?
Yeah.
But just, if it's all about Ford, then why is Ford almost as much the enemy here as Ferrari is?
Yeah, it was so odd.
There's no loyalty to Ford, which is fine. But don't make that the movie. Make it its own movie about the Shelby team kind of brought in by Ford, but using Ford to achieve their own accomplishment that Ford's kind of the piggy bank for, but also inherent, because it can't help itself, obstacle to.
Right.
And that's fine, because that's kind of what this movie was. But then they emphasized the Ford pride or going to war thing so much that then it just made everyone involved with that seem like a jackass.
Yeah.
It was so stupid. So this needs to be explained.
Wait.
The Josh Lucas element has to be explained.
Okay, fine. Go for it.
Okay. We keep referring to Josh Lucas, also the senior VP. So Josh Lucas, this actor, he was in The Incredible Hulk, directed by Ang Lee. He was the snide, snarling, awful guy. He does that like almost every role he does.
Or he plays a love interest in a rom-com, which that's the stuff I know him for.
It's no James Marsden. He's just got one of those faces. He's made to be like a modern, grown-up version of like a 1980s blonde high school bully.
I see it.
Right?
Yeah.
So, he's in it as the senior VP of Ford, and he's the one who's skeptical of the project, and he's the one who thinks in corporate boxes, so he comes up with a dumb marketing stunt all the time. Mm-hmm. So, for example, at the end of the movie, Christian Bale...
This whole thing is
not really what the movie's about, right? So at the end of the movie, spoiler, Christian Bale is about to win the race, and he gets informed that this senior VP has thought of the wonderful plan of having Ford, driven by him, and then Ford in 2nd place, and then Ford in 3rd place, all drive wheel to wheel over the finish line together for the sake of a photograph, because it'll look good for their marketing, rather than letting Christian Bale and his team achieve their accomplishment of just winning the race by more than a country mile.
Yeah, because Ken Miles was an amazing racer. He was
and the car they built was fantastic.
Yes.
And they achieved a wonderful thing. Okay, so somehow he achieves his plan, but he tells it to Henry Ford, who again was supposed to have like the fire back in his gut if we want to win, and he agrees to it, and then when they complain to him, he's like, oh, well, I named him the senior VP. I can't do anything about that. But you just threatened to fire everyone, Henry Ford. You just asserted how you're in charge of everyone on this project, and everything happens by your say-so, and people only report to you. So you can fire him. Yeah, but I appointed him, and he's in charge, and it's his decision.
Okay, wait. We were talking about...
Sorry, that had to be explained. This one character, his role is so annoying.
So basically, his whole role is to constantly come in and say, I don't like Ken Miles, because Ken Miles said something stupid to me one time.
Yes.
And now I don't ever want him to race. Which is false. That, as far as I understand, that didn't happen. And also, it was just a stupid ploy to create more drama that the movie didn't need.
Interfered with the drama of the movie.
Did not need. So another thing in the script that I didn't think was necessary and were the only parts in the movie that felt slow were the parts with Christian Bale and his son. So his son, I like the interplay in most movies between a father and his child. I
like the idea of having that in a movie. Whether or not Hollywood can pull off
also
normal
fair.
Family interaction is another thing.
Right.
It's almost as if so many of these scripts are written by people who don't have kids or an idea of family.
But the thing for me in this movie was I felt that what they were doing in those scenes was it was almost a chance for the writers to just speak directly to the audience about the things that they wanted to say in a kind of annoying, we love driving, we understand the sport way, just by having Christian Bale talk through his son.
It was incredibly didactic and kind of condescendingly expositive.
And just a little slow and not really useful. And so that was one of the things I didn't find that you know what it is? I didn't find that the chemistry between the son and Christian Bale was great.
The son was played in a way too mature.
Yeah, because if you're...
He's played too much like film kid, rather than like... And I like that the son, like, adored his father, wanted to be very involved in learning about the racing and watching the racing, was like hanging on every radio report of the Le Mans race. That's fine. Have that in your movie. But just... the way he participated in conversation was just... I don't know. I felt a little baloney.
I agree.
Felt a little fake, and it kind of got on my nerves, and it occurred too many times. And
But what I'll say is that and this is, I think we're wrapping it up now. For me, the whole movie, despite all of these negatives, which were frustrating, and you could kind of feel them throughout.
We enjoyed this movie.
I had a great time watching this movie. Like, I would recommend it to you. I would say, make a night of it. Go see it. It's not going to feel like 3 hours. We saw it at 7. We saw it at 7 p.m. and we got home by 10, and which was also lovely because most of the time we see movies a little bit later. We get home a little bit later. So I just felt good, and I also felt like the relationship between... Honestly, it was the relationship between Christian Bale and Matt Damon on screen that made the whole movie work and made it a fun watch. And also, another thing I learned is that there was no CGI in this movie. All of the racing, I know, you didn't believe it.
No, there was CGI in this movie.
But all of the racing...
crashes were CGI.
Well, all of the racing and the cars were real.
No.
All the cars were real?
No, they weren't.
Did you look it up?
They looked like Tonka toys.
I looked it up, and it was real,
It was Hot
apparently.
Wheels. It was digital Hot Wheels. No, there was CGI in this movie.
I don't know.
And it looked bad.
It
distracted me.
I disagree.
Was it a deep fake? Am I being deep faked by this movie?
I don't think so.
And
the only last thing I'll say... Yes, thank you. The last thing I'll say is that forgive the movie for the last 10 minutes. Because the last 10 minutes were... I felt not a good choice. I think that they really could have done better on that. And there was something in the movie... I mean, I don't really want to bring it up because I don't think it's a kind of a long thing to talk about, which was the scene in the car where it's 220 miles per hour.
Oh.
There was a scene in the car where it felt like it should have happened later.
I want to just discuss that briefly.
You do, okay.
Yeah. So, okay. One of the opening monologues in the movie, or rather, the monologue in the opening, because there's not more than one, is Matt Damon saying something that feels tacked on and out of pace with the tone of the movie, of 7,000 RPM is when you just forget the car and you feel like a body moving through space.
Yeah.
Okay, it sounds a little hippie-ish, but I get it. You're in the zone. You feel it. Just say a speed, because if a tire is a certain diameter and it's rotating a certain amount of times and it's not just spinning in snow, hypothetically you're moving at a certain speed, whatever, RPM, they focus on the RPM a lot in the movie. Maybe I don't know racing and that's why, but it seemed a little silly. But they say that at the beginning of the movie, and then all the way at the end when Christian Bale, Ken Miles, is at Le Mans and he's ahead of everyone else and he's spoken about this idea of the perfect lap where you make every right decision about how hard to push the car and when to speed up and when to slow down, how to maneuver and negotiate the track. He kind of feels it, and he kind of just realizes how far ahead he is and how he's achieved his goal. I realize this retroactively, that's what he's feeling, because in the moment, he kind of zones out, sees how fast the car is going. You see that thing where they pull out with the camera like that, and you see the road extending out before him, and you think, oh, he's going to crash and burn to death.
Right. So they've set up throughout the movie, at some point, somebody is going to crash and die. They set that up throughout the movie, and you're just kind of waiting for it.
You know there's going to be a moment where he's going to die or almost die.
Yes. So this moment in the movie that we're talking about
has every trace of death.
It was very drawn out, and it was after the fact that Jacob said, "Oh, it was because he had realized he'd hit his penultimate, his
goal.
He
reached the
goal.
Pinnacle of achievement, and there'd been the conflict about, he'd been given the choice by Matt Damon, is he going to drive with those two other cars across the finish line as a unit, or is he going to achieve the victory personally and create kind of corporate problems for their team?
Right.
So he realizes, he hits that RPM, he's in the zone, realizes how hard he just won everything.
Right.
And it calms him, and he slows down, he lets the other cars come up next to him, and
so
they
that
all
they
go
could all
together.
go in together.
That's what the scene was for. That's not what it felt like it was for in the moment.
It felt like, to me, I thought to myself, okay, it zooms in on the speedometer going 220 miles per hour, and then it's
whatever the RPM.
No, it shows 220 miles per hour.
Is that speedometer?
Yeah, it's the speed.
RPMs is not
7,000 RPM is
That's
not
not
what
speed.
I'm talking
Your
about.
speed's one.
I said 220 miles per hour.
Whatever, go ahead.
And the as he's driving, it zooms in on the speedometer, showing it, and it shows that there's no movement. So I thought, the brakes have gone out.
Because they'd mentioned when he takes over the car in the last leg of the race, brakes are shot.
Yes.
And previously, his brakes had smoked out. They'd gone bright red or bright orange, car failure. Everyone's crashing in this race, which we wanted to circle around to this. They do not clearly establish how lethal this racing is. We see crash and crash and crash. We see people, one guy hits the side of the road, spins out so his side of the car is facing the oncoming cars, and so he's like, and he gets smashed. Yeah,
that
exactly.
was way too loud.
It was in the theater. The theater was actually too loud. He gets hit at 200 miles per hour by another guy. They don't tell us this man has been made into fine paste. Please establish the lethality of this.
Right.
It was distracting how that was not
upsetting.
discussed. Sorry.
But
now we're back to this scene with the lethality of Christian Bale behind the wheel.
It felt like he realized...
My hands are still ringing.
Yeah, I know. That was so loud. He realized that he kind of takes his hands off the wheel for a second, and I thought it meant he had realized he'd made the choice to live this life. He accepted that this was how he was going to go, and he was doing what he loved. Okay.
Yeah, Christian Bale's character.
I can accept all that.
And everyone who rides a motorcycle, same kind of bargain you've struck of, I will die based on this. Right. But the ride was worth it.
But and so I was like, okay, sure. Nope. That wasn't it. He just wins.
He's just in the zone, man.
But then the end of the movie, spoilers, he actually does die because the brakes go out. And it's something like that.
Or something to do with the car spinning out at 150 and flipping. I looked it up.
Yeah. And it's just, it's half that dramatic. Not even half. It's a third that
it's
dramatic.
It's so understated.
And I was thinking to myself, why? Why didn't you wait and use that shot, that moment, when he's about to die? Because it would have made more sense. But
it would have been dramatic. It would have gotten across the poignancy of his devotion to his craft. His family's kind of buy-in on it and the drama of it all. It would have been great. And instead, it was just misplaced and very tonally confusing and misleading. Again, so we spent almost the entirety of this review, except for the first few minutes, talking about things that bothered us about this movie, and that reflects our conversation about the movie just personally after we left the theater. We liked this movie. We enjoyed watching this movie, this almost 3-hour movie. We had a good time. Christian Bale, charismatic. Matt Damon,
my
charismatic.
Favorite scene, I'm going to say one thing. My favorite scene was the scene where Christian Bale and Matt Damon get in a fight. That was hilarious. And it really reflected what guy friends are like, in my opinion.
Yeah, because you've seen me fist fight so many of our friends.
I've seen guys get in fights, though, not necessarily physical ones, but just get into fights because they're friends.
Because we're men. occupying a similar space.
Sort of, yeah. And it's just, I thought that was really funny. So I thought that this movie was really good. I would give it...
I'm not even going to give it a rating. It doesn't deserve a rating from me. I'm too annoyed by the avoidable flaws in it.
Well,
Again,
I would give
go see the movie. You'll enjoy it. Also, this movie bugged the heck out of me.
I would say...
Also, I enjoyed it.
3.5 to 4 stars.
No.
That's what I would give it. Hey, you're not rating it, so you can't say anything about my rating.
I'm not rating it, but you should rate it 3 out of 5.
No, I liked it enough to give it 3.5.
You should rate it 3 out of 5. I'm not rating it, but you should rate it 3 out of 5.
So, my opinion on this movie is go see it, and these are our issues with it.
Just, if we're remaking everything, just remake this in 15 years. Digitally de-age Christian Bale and Matt Damon back to how they were for this exact movie.
Or just re-edit it.
Re-edit, yes.
That's really
just re-edit it.
If you just re-edited
Yours
it...
costs less money, so they're not going to do it.
That's also fair. But if we let them remake it, they might put Marvel characters in. And that's our review for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Follow me on my blog and Twitter and Instagram if you haven't. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.